Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to like. The Damned. Well, let me tell you, damn this movie. Before I get to spoilers, let me just sum up the impact this movie had on me, which was not a good one. It was a very disappointing ending. What this film did in such a slow pace is build up this tension that you hope is going to go somewhere. And it kind of gives you this feeling that I might have trouble sleeping tonight. Like I might have to tuck my feet into the bed tonight and make sure the blanket's covering them. Because if for some reason, if my leg happens to drift off of the corner of the bed, a monster's going to grab it and drag me underneath. And then I will be no more. But let me tell you, when I got to the end of this film and you see how it ends, it erases all of those feelings of fear instantly. It's almost like, why was I afraid? Am I stupid? This movie made me feel stupid for having any kind of fear. So I'll say the first movie of 2025 was a total rug pull, and I'm disappointed that I wasted my time with it. In a nutshell, that's how I feel about the movie. Now, before we get into spoilers, let's take a quick commercial break. The Stars and Stripes Freedom Deck ships exclusively in the United States. Available on eBay and Etsy, link in the description below. Available from La Casa Loca on eBay and Etsy. Okay, so let's get into spoilers. In The Damned, takes place in the 1800s. There's this desolate place where during the winter, there is this station where these men go to fish for food, and they're there till the spring. This seems to be an annual thing that these men do for work, and it seems that they've been doing this for a very long time, maybe a decade. There's one person we learn is missing from this crew, and it is the husband of our protagonist. She is a widow. We learn that she inherited this fishing station from him after his death, and the men continue to come back and do their regular work there because it's been established that this is stable income for them. However, during this particular winter, they're having trouble finding fish until there's a little bit of a sign of life that ends abruptly, where we get a ship off into the distance in a very dangerous part of the lake. This ship sinks, and the fishermen, along with the widow, decide it's best to just let them die, because if they try to go and help them, they could be putting their own lives at risk and die as well, which makes sense. Then we get a gift from the dying ship. It is a barrel of some kind of food, and this draws the fishermen and the widow to go and investigate further at the ship sinking site, where they encounter another box, along with survivors who try to pull them into the waters while trying to get into their boat. And they end up in this conflict where they actually kill the survivors, and then they've basically damned themselves, hence the damned, to this conflict with survivors. Later we see the casualties wash ashore, and in their guilt they host a burial for them. And there's superstition from one of the women whose name is Helga, and she tries to keep the crew protected with these charms because of this thing called Drago, I believe. And I'm not sure if it's maybe I'm not familiar with this Drago lore because it's a little bit ambiguous. They don't really explain what this demon entity is, or maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. I can't tell. But basically, because of their sins of killing these survivors, these potential survivors from the sinking ship, they've damned themselves to this spirit, this evil spirit that, again, I'm not sure if it came from the ship or it's just was always there on that part of the island or whatever, wherever it is that they're at. The mountain, the lake mountain. I don't know where they're at, to be honest. So it's a little unclear as to how this demon got there because they've never had to deal with this thing before. So did it come from the ship or did it come from their actions of killing these survivors? I just don't get it. But either way, their luck changes because then they start to get a harvest of fish. And they've been there for whoever knows how long and they've been having trouble finding fish. Suddenly, they're blessed with this fortune of fish. They celebrate, but immediately their fortune is taken from them. And there's a trail of charms leading to the grave where we find that one of the men buried in these coffins is missing. So this causes even more panic amongst these fishermen and the widow. All this time, as this is happening slowly throughout the story, the widow first starts seeing this kind of a zombie demon corpse, which I'm assuming is supposed to be torturing them for their sins of murder. However, every time this Drago appears, I'm not even sure if that's how you call it, but I'm just going to call it Drago because everyone kind of says it differently in the film. Anyways, anytime this Drago appears, something terrible happens. But the Drago itself is never really attacking the people. It's more like it's driving this hysteria for them to attack each other or have conflict with each other. And slowly, one by one, we lose different members of this fishing expedition until there's almost none of them. And we learn that there's this particular way to get rid of the Drago, which is to burn it. You have to burn this thing. You need the power of fire. And so we see more and more how this supernatural ghost, this demon ghost, has driven these shipmen, these fishermen, to basically taking each other out. So it's kind of almost not really possessed them, but it's really psychologically messed with them to the point where they can't even trust each other. However, once we finally get to the climax, and all that there's left is basically this woman, this widow, who's going to have the final fight, the final showdown with this demon. And she accomplishes the goal of using fire to burn this demon in the house. They do a complete M. Night Shyamalan and show you that it was never a demon the whole time. It was one of the surviving ship members who was just taking in the night their supply, surviving off of their supply by stealing it at night. So the whole time they thought things were going missing and they couldn't tell what was happening and who was in the fog and the shadowy figure, and all of that was just the fishermen who survived. So there was never no ghost. There was never no demon. They built up all this paranoia and fear and suspense for it to just be a fisher guy. And the widow at the end, she burns him alive. But she then realizes that she burnt him alive, even though she sees him as this demon. It's so confusing because when you see her in the fight with him, she's seeing him as a demon. And then when she escapes and she gets out of the house, she has a flashback of the inside of the house and she sees him as a regular fisherman. So it just creates all these questions like, what did they all see? Was it really a demon? Or did she imagine that she did make the wrong choice and actually killed one of the surviving guys again? What was all the paranoia for? But it still doesn't make sense because why didn't they go crazy during any of their other fishing harvests in the past? So yeah, maybe it really was a guy. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. There's so many questions. Anyways, this film sucks. Go watch it on streaming services if you really want to watch it, but I wouldn't recommend it for theaters. For more uneducated expert analysis on film and cinema and the creative field in general, follow us on Twitter at Ghettoplex_MP4, on Instagram at Ghettoplex.mp4, and subscribe to us on YouTube at Ghettoplex. Support independent business and buy the Stars and Stripes Freedom Deck. Poker for Patriots. Ships exclusively in the USA. Available from La Casa Loca on eBay and Etsy.